area. 6 years going, and they're looking at Buhari's promise to turn the economy around, diversify it, make it a robust one that will be the envy of many nations in Africa and the world. What's your assessment? 6 years.
Well, let me begin by actually commending the minister for the. She's very modest, because I know they've done more than what she has tried. Very, very modest. But I have to commend her because, as a minister of the economy, she showed exceptional leadership in working very closely with the National Assembly. And that is a distinguishing feature. Look at 1999 and all, it was a battle about changing Senate presidents. The second one was about a situation of mutual distrust. In fact, in the first administration of the president, of Mr. President, you know what happened? We had a dysfunctional National Assembly that didn't allow the budget to work. The budget cycle was decimated. He never spent more than 6 months of any budget. So it was a show of shame. But look at this second term. We have an active and proactive relationship between the executive and the National Assembly. And you could hear our colleague reeling out things that they are doing, not even waiting to be prompted. Their program of work showing great sensitivity and reaction to the matters before the package. So I commend both houses. But first of all, there are 3 things that strike me about how we have managed the economy. One is that, if you remember when we had the first recession, we ran to development partners and they said, look, give us a plan. And until you have a plan, nothing happens. And we produce economic recovery and growth plan. And every MDA had marching orders on what they have to achieve. And with that plan, we quickly exited recession, though it took 3 quarters or more, 4. Then the second wave, we quickly had a plan, economic sustainability plan, and the monetary authorities came with a plan. And because you work with a plan and specific target, is a point of mobilization of resources. And that you could see how we quickly exited. Just one thing. Now, the third thing is the alignment and coordination between monetary and fiscal policy authorities. And this is something I've always spoken to the minister about. And she listens and she does her best. If you see how coordinated both policy frameworks are, that one enriches the other. You see the quantitative fiscal and monetary policy response to COVID-19. We have 2.3 trillion rolling out on the economic sustainability plan. You have over 3.5 trillion from the from CBF for monetary policy. So and then you see the targeting, the order of targeting. Not only that you have social intervention fund there protecting the weakest in our economy, but you also had targeted injection to the demand side of the economy. Because one thing is to put so much resources in promoting growth and productivity, and then there's no power to buy. So with that, you see a balance. And we quickly exited. And so it's got these 3 things lined up, working together. But let me come to the area where most people forget the context. When you want to compare things, compare like to like, and then identify the context. First of all, for many, many decades, the problem facing us in agriculture is that whilst we are the biggest producer of food in Africa, and then one of the 5 in the country, in the world, as according to FAO, 30 to 70% of what we produce never make it into the food chain. The production system that we inherited up until a few years ago has been a subsistence agricultural system, too antiquated and without flow of investment. Now you have an agro-borrowers program that changed all that, transformed our subsistence farmers to commercial farmers in a well-organized and orchestrated value chain approach, where from 10 to more value chains. But you now have all these people having access to finance, over 4 million of them, without having to find a collateral. They just brought in technology, biometric bank verification technology, and then geo-mapping of their so-called 1 hectare, 1 man, 1 hectare, and you have a diffusion of fund. And then it's not just giving them money, but organized in such a way that there is an end-to-end intervention. You have anchors that could be exporters or processors or whatever that aggregate the produce. And they make sure that what they are getting to plant, the planting materials, are standard hybrid seeds that improve yield and productivity. They're getting fertilizers of correct quality to the land where they are. They're getting herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides, and they have extension support. And then you have land clearing, you have mechanization of services. It's unbelievable. And then, of course, you have de-risking of the agriculture. So you now have an organized system, a production system that integrates those your subsistence farmers who are now commercial farmers into national and global supply chain. I mean, we haven't seen this, for goodness sake. And we hear so many revolutions, green revolution, all that, but we haven't seen a fundamental restructure of our agricultural production system. Now you come to infrastructure. Now, the story about infrastructure is, if you look at our vision, there are two visions of Nigeria, apart from 2020 that's gone. One says that by 2030, our GDP will be 1.64 trillion, and that's PwC. The second one says by 2050, it will be $6.4 trillion. Now, how can you rise from $450 billion to 1.6 in 9 years? I can't see the pathway. The pathway is infrastructure. For goodness sake, nobody comes to you if you don't invest in infrastructure. Even your businesses can't expand if you don't invest in infrastructure. Infrastructure, according to many surveys, I mean, including, of course, the Manufacturers Association, 20% are transportation costs, 30% is energy costs, name it. And then you have communication, multimodal investment in communication. You have rail. The last investment in rail was 1927. But look at the rail network, look at the resources going out to rail, to build rail. Rail is the cheapest, most effective way of long-distance transportation of heavy goods. Now, the roads, the administration didn't come in to cancel all the contracts, get logged into disputes and arbitration, and use money we don't have to settle contractors and then award new contracts. They went for go and do the work that you have been awarded. And it's all about fulfilling. That's why you have, instead of abandoned roads, workers in all the roads, you have every highway, you have some work going on in every highway. We haven't got there yet. But the spirit and the action shows that we are determined to conserve resources and then build the opportunity for investors to come in, both domestic investors and all of that. But then, why I said that the minister was modest is that if you look at that infrastructure, we have solution. Because the government has put 1 trillion on setting up infrastructure company, PLC, which will hope to go to market to raise up to 15 trillion naira and then take away much of that burden of infrastructure development across the country from federal government so that you can concentrate on other areas like social inclusion areas and education and manpower development, and then they will run with those and get more PPPs in, and you know, it will be a different story. And I've talked about that because I've talked about infrastructure. The ease of doing business means that we are making, you know, as much effort as possible in extremely difficult circumstances to make the environment, business environment, more acceptable and more enabling. And you've seen that. Look at what happened in CCAC. It's unbelievable. CAC has prepared us for Africa Free Trade Area because it has removed so many requirements. You can do online registration, you can do virtual meeting, virtual JGM. You don't have to have more than one director. You don't need secretary. I mean, you can't believe all these things are happening in our life. How many years? When was the last update? How many decades ago? So everybody knows what the problems are. The security issue has actually accounted to decimating the economy. That's why we have so many people flying out of the country. That is capital flight. But we cannot ignore the opportunities that are being created for us to rewrite the history of our economy.
Professor Konefe, thank you very much for your elaborate contribution. I want to return to the Honorable Minister of Finance.